Hello and welcome to News in Depth here on TVP World with me, Ashim Kumar. NATO foreign ministers are meeting in Brussels at a tense moment for the alliance. US-Russia talks on Ukraine have produced no breakthrough. Europe feels sidelined and Washington's top diplomat is notably absent. At the same time, NATO is coordinating massive logistic support for Ukraine from its Polish hub, while facing escalating Russian hybrid threats across Europe. So, how united is NATO, and what does this moment mean for Ukraine and for Europe's security? Well, joining us is Marcin Zaborowski, Europe editor at TVP World. Marcin, great to have you back. Thank you for taking time.
Delighted to be here.
So, before we kick off, short soundbite from Mark Rutte. Let's see what he has to say. Sorry, I beg your pardon. From Sikorski, the Polish foreign minister.
We are making an additional expression of solidarity with the people of Ukraine, and Poland is delighted to be joining Norway and Germany in a package from the American program of supporting Ukraine, together the sizable sum of $500 million. We hope that the United States notices it. We hope that Ukraine notices it. And above all, we hope that other allies see it as encouragement to also take advantage of this program so that Putin gets the message and Ukraine can get a fair peace.
Right, so Polish Foreign Minister Sikorski talking about the PURL, I'll just get the name right, Prioritised Ukraine Requirements List initiative for Ukraine. Tell us a little bit about what that is.
Well, basically, that's a support for financing military aid for Ukraine. So what happens, the Ukrainians are presenting the allies with a list of things that they need, hence the list. The Americans usually have the equipment, which could be purchased, acquired, and the money comes from us.
Right, so there's a pool.
That's a pool, basically, and in this case, the pool is for the sum of $500 million, of which Poland is contributing the fifth, 100 million US dollars.
Okay, so a pool of 500 million, Poland's contributing 20% of that. But not everyone's happy with contributing to this pool. Why? I mean, does it reflect some kind of disunity amongst NATO countries?
Some countries are happier than the others. It is really about the concrete demands of money. In that case, for example, for the nation like Poland, the sum of 100 million US dollars is sizable. But for some nations, that's actually contributing to PURL. That's the abbreviation for this program. Is a useful gesture. It is a useful gesture because the contributions to PURL count towards the obligation that the NATO member states put upon themselves towards the defense expenditure. So what I mean here exactly is that at the last summit, the NATO nations oblige themselves to spend on defense at least 3.5% of their GDP on defense. And the contributions to PURL can count towards this amount.
Right.
So obviously this puts a country like Poland, which spends well beyond 3.5, we spent 4.7 on defense. So this additional 100 mil is a lot for us. And in a sense, it's not buying us any argument, because we fulfill this argument with basically spending 3.5% of GDP very easily.
Right. So this is the sticking point, if I understand you correctly, for some countries. They say, well, yeah, but we've got to meet our target first before we contribute to PURL. So let's focus on that first.
No. These contributions count towards PURL.
That's what I'm saying. But the point is that they want to get their defence, their personal national defence levels to such a stage that they feel confident, and then they're prepared to invest in PURL? Because whatever they invest in PURL isn't going to be spent in their country, it's going to be spent in Ukraine.
Yes, yeah,
Right.
that's correct. But also, some nations find it difficult to fulfill this target of defense spending to 3.5 because of the procurement rules, because of the lengthy procedures. So it's easier for them to actually spend a lot of money on the support for Ukraine. And that's why we see such a very large contribution from Norway. Like, Norway contributes several times more than Poland, even though it's a much smaller nation. Of course, it's a wealthier nation, but then it's being read that way, that Norway is fulfilling the target of defense spending.
Understood. Now, I'm sure you've been watching this foreign ministers meeting, NATO foreign ministers meeting very, very closely. I've been getting the impression that some kind of cohesive strategy is starting to form. Would you agree with that assessment?
It depends how when this cohesion is meant to fall. The key issue here is that the Americans are talking to the Russians about peace in Ukraine and finding some kind of a deal, and the others are kept in dark. We don't really know what are the elements of American negotiations with the Russians. And the last, before today's meeting in Brussels, there was an extraordinary smaller scale meeting of NATO Atlantic Council, consisting of the ambassadors, when the Americans were being called upon to reveal at least some details of the negotiations so that the nations would know about the elements which affect them, which can potentially affect them. So in that respect, there is a cohesion in a sense that that European member states, they don't want to antagonize Donald Trump. They don't want to antagonize U.S. administration. They speak very gently about it, and they coordinate how to do that. Mark Rutte, who is NATO Secretary General, is almost totally representing American point of view. But I think that you see the conundrum being seeing that the key ally, the anchor of that alliance, is doing deals that other Europeans don't know the details of them.
Yeah, well, Mark Rutte is certainly walking a tightrope, isn't he? But I mean, in terms of, for example, PURL, which seems to be one area of, well, general consent across European NATO countries, let's say, but also, this attitude towards, well, we are committed to Ukraine's defence, even going so far as talking about boots on the ground. And there's a soundbite that I'd like to share with you on that particular point.
If there is a need, and this with the formation of the coalition of the willing security guarantees, boots on the ground, we will participate. Even we are the neighboring country and a small country to Russia, and we are the front line of the east to NATO. But we must understand that if we can keep the peace in Ukraine, then we are securing Europe as well.
Right, so that was the Estonian Foreign Minister, Mr. Sakana, talking about, well, we're a small country, but we're prepared to join this coalition that's winning and put boots on the ground in Ukraine. Your thoughts?
Yes. Well, I think Estonia sees itself as being in an extremely precarious position. As a very small nation, the entire population of Estonia is 1.3 million. Parts of Estonia are territory of Estonia are contested by Russia. There's a huge Russian population in Estonia, about 30%. There is a southern city of Narva, which is next to the Russian border, which is almost totally Russian-speaking, like 85% of it. So we've been talking for a long time about Narva becoming next Crimea, in a sense. Yeah, you can very easily foresee the scenario whereby there is some kind of a Russian ethnic Russians committee uprising taking place in Narva, and them declaring a Narvan republic, which then wants to become a part of Russia. It could happen. So Estonia has to go completely out of its way to make sure that the alliance holds together, that the Trump administration is not antagonized, and that they are being seen as a positive force contributing wherever they can.
Right. Now, that makes perfect sense, but there is one question that some are asking, which is, okay, well, if a small country like Estonia, with such a tiny little population, is offering to put boots on the ground, why isn't Poland? What's the response from the Polish government on that?
Well, the answer is sociological and political. Sociological is because the vast majority of Polish public opinion is against that. And I'm talking about numbers like 85, 90%. The Poles really don't want that. Then the political class is responding to that sentiment within the population. And everybody from left to right and center is against Poland contributing troops towards the stabilization force. However, having said that, Poland is an indispensable member of that coalition, because if the Estonian or French or British troops arriving as part of a stabilization force to Ukraine, they have to go through Poland. And Poland has to provide it with necessary logistics and support. And in fact, the NATO facility in Bydgoszcz is designated as a potential support command for overseeing such an operation. So it cannot happen without a huge contribution from Poland. However, it will fall short of contributing boots on the ground.
Understood, but there are lots of ways of supporting Ukraine without putting boots on the ground. Now, the other sense I got following this meeting, and I wonder if you agree, is that the tone coming from Brussels, the NATO ministers' meeting, is far more belligerent, far more aggressive than it has been. For example, in the area of hybrid warfare, they recognise that Russia has been, committing hybrid war against European countries for a while. And in fact, there is a soundbite from Mark Rutte, NATO Secretary General, got it right this time, about that. Let's have a listen to what he said.
Let me refer to what Radek Sikorski did, the Polish foreign minister. What he did is he directly linked the support of Poland to the PURL program to what happened with this railway line. And he said, if this happens again, we will again do more. So Russia, you have to know, we will create these asymmetric reactions. We will not blow up railway lines in Russia, but we will make sure you feel if you do stuff like this. Because it is extremely reckless and totally unacceptable. And of course, the question, I think, still in this particular case is who is exactly behind it. I don't know, but that's up to Poland and our intelligence services to find out in more detail. But he made clear that whatever is behind it, know that we will, as Poland, do more and more and more on PURL if this happens, and we will also do other stuff. And this is exactly our hybrid strategy. That be it intentional or not, whatever Russia is doing or Belarus is doing, look at the balloons with Lithuania, that we will react in a way of our own choosing, but they will feel it.
How do you read that statement, Marcin?
Well, the NATO is becoming serious about what we call the hybrid threats, which until recently, it was very difficult to get serious about it because, NATO is a military organization. Why it should be reacting to acts of economic sabotage, cutting cables,
blowing up train tracks.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, how is military equipped to deal with this kind of threats? And even the designation as a hybrid threat suggests that it's something, it's not like super serious. That it is some kind of a threat, but it's not essential, it's not existential. So that's why the Lithuanian former foreign minister, Mr. Landsbergis, he made it his personal campaign to change this denomination into state-sponsored terrorism rather than a hybrid threat. But the point is here that Poland, Lithuania, Germany, other nations which are frequently affected by these acts of, let's still call them hybrid threats, Poland almost on weekly basis, want NATO to come up with a clear strategy and response to that. So NATO should not be just reacting to these acts of sabotage, but also NATO should be proactive. Let's make Russia also second guess our intentions. Let's also make Russia know that there are consequences of these kind of operations taking place. If Russians intend to blow up Polish trains, that's when we send more money to Ukraine, even though, as we discussed before, we don't really have to. Poland does not have to send additional resources to Ukraine because we already spent this minimum requirement for defense spending and far more than that. So that's what Mark Rutte was saying essentially. Poland links Russian operation in Poland to strengthening its support and contributing more money to Ukraine.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true, and also there are other ways of countering this. For example, cyber warfare can be done non-kinetically, obviously. But do you think that this is really redefining the meaning of war today? Where it's no longer entirely kinetic, and actually, in many senses, Europe and NATO have been at war for the last 2 or 3 years already.
I mean, yes and no. This war has been, like almost any war, we encountered operations, methods and technology which were not practiced on such a scale before. For example, look into the drone warfare. This war, to a large extent, is done by drones. And drones are main reason why the front line is stuck these days. And why there is a so-called death zone of about 30 kilometers when neither Russia nor Ukraine can actually move. So acts of sabotage, I think this is something which we have always seen in a warfare. Let's also remind people about how the Second World War started. It started with a German provocation in the German town of, it was called Gliwice. It's called Gliwice today. So a small town on the border on the German side, which people dressed in Polish uniforms stage an operation killing some Germans who were there
at a border post.
At the border post.
Yeah.
So a so-called false flag operation.
Yeah.
And it happened in 1939. It's happening all the time these days.
So sabotage has been going on forever. It's just the means of carrying it out have changed. Very quickly, we've only got a minute or so left. Secretary Rubio was absent from these meetings, which is notable in itself. But that does bring us on to the role or the possibility of Ukraine actually joining NATO. Clearly, Russia's against it. The US isn't going to support it. Any chance of that happening in the near future?
No.
Right.
No, let's just be, it will be very undiplomatic to close the door to that. But realistically, it's not going to happen anytime soon. And everybody knows about it, including the Ukrainians. Right. And the Ukrainians have even been saying, that's not our objective here.
Yeah, as long as they get some kind of security guarantees which are reliable. Thank you, as always, for joining us, Marcin.
Thank you.
And that brings us to the end of this episode of News in Depth. Don't go away, as always, lots more coming up. Goodbye.